Very good morning to everyone. I'm Dr. Neetika Jain, Associate Professor, Acropolis Institute of Management Studies and Research. Today I'm going to present a topic in front of you, which is leverage. Leverage is one of the very important topic of financial management. Let us just start quickly. Leverage is the leverage comes from a physics word which is meant lever. Lever is a word which tells us that if we want to pull or we want to move in machinery from one place to another, and if I cannot move it with my own force, I need an extra force to move that machinery. So then whatever extra tools I'm using to force or move that machinery, that extra force is called as lever. So in finance also, we have some capital, which is the owner's fund, but still we need borrowed funds, which will help us to move the owner's fund productively. Only owner's fund cannot generate profits. We need a part of capital which comes from the borrowed fund. So this borrowed fund, the more and more borrowed fund a company has, the more leverage a company is carrying. Now this borrowed funds or this concept comes with, why do we use only borrowed funds in this concept? Because borrowed fund is a fund which has fixed interest to be paid. So it comes with a fixed cost of capital. We need to bear some fixed cost for it. So when we applied this leverage word to the finance, then we saw that it is not only the interest, which is a fixed cost to the company. There is another fixed cost component which helps in manufacturing, which is the fixed assets. So we have leverage wherever fixed cost applies in the company, and wherever we need that fixed cost, if that fixed cost does not exist, we cannot move or we cannot get our profits. So that fixed cost is very important to get more and more profits in the business. That moving that or helping of that fixed cost in generating profit is known as leverage. So we have two types of leverage. One is operating leverage, one is financial leverage. Now what we were talking about, the manufacturing unit. If I am into manufacturing of something and I am involving fixed machineries to manufacture a chocolate, so whatever fixed cost is involved in manufacturing a chocolate, seeing that or the profit which we earn through that fixed cost which we have involved is known as operating leverage. So the formula comes as contribution, which is the earning, and EBIT, which is the earning after that fixed cost. So contribution is the earning which is calculated from the variable cost. So when we deduct variable cost from sales, we get contribution. So if I only deduct variable cost, the part of profit which I get is contribution. Now from contribution, when I minus the fixed cost, the value I get is EBIT. So the contribution and EBIT ratio shows the amount. The higher the value of the ratio, the more leverage we are putting in to earn the profits. So whatever leverage you are putting in more, that means you are having more fixed cost at the time of manufacturing a unit. So more risk is involved. So higher the leverage, the more riskier it is for a company to cover it. So we need, it is not only that the contribution should be higher, we should always have EBIT as a higher element. We can understand that sales are higher, so contribution is higher because variable cost is low. But if fixed cost will be higher, then EBIT will become low, which will be a bad sign. So if you are earning good after deducting a variable cost, you also have to good earn after deducting the fixed cost. So fixed cost should be less so that a lesser number will be deducted and a good EBIT will come up. So a good ratio will tell you the risk is higher, because a good ratio will say that EBIT is less, contribution is more. If EBIT is less, which means in reverse that fixed cost is higher. So higher fixed cost comes with more risk. So we have to see that this operating leverage should be on the minimum side. We also have another formula for calculating leverage, which is degree of leverage. So operating leverage also has degree of operating leverage. When we calculate the same thing in percentage, then we have degree of operating leverage. Or we can also say that when we calculate the same things in percentage as a change. So we will get change only when we have figures of 2 years. So when we have a data of 2 years and we try to calculate leverage, then we will apply the formula of degree of operating leverage. Whereas if I have data of only 1 year and I'm calculating operating leverage, that means I'm just seeing that what is the effect of fixed cost on my profits. Similarly, if I see financial leverage, so financial leverage is again when we are applying borrowed funds. Clear? So if I'm taking debt from the public, I'm getting borrowed funds from the bank. If I'm taking a loan from my friend, any kind of this fund will give us of interest as a fixed cost. This interest as a fixed cost will give you the financial leverage. Clear? Now, there's another terminology which is shown here. It is trading on equity. The more and more financial leverage we have, the more and more we are playing with the equity shareholders or with the profits of equity shareholders, because more of interest is paid, then it will affect the dividend. So dividend will come down. So if you are playing with the equity shareholders, that means you are trading on the benefits of equity shareholders through borrowed funds. So this terminology is called as gearing on equity or trading on equity. So financial leverage is also called as trading on equity. The more financial leverage will tell you are trading more on equity. That means you are trading more with the, or you are playing with the funds of equity shareholders by using the borrowed funds. The formula for financial leverage can be EBIT upon EBT. Again, now the table is sales minus variable cost, we get contribution. Contribution minus fixed cost, we get EBIT. And EBIT minus interest, we get EBT. Clear? So the difference between EBIT and EBT is interest. Again, interest is making a a fixed cost, is showing a type of fixed cost for the company on the finance. If you're taking fund from the loan, you have to pay a fixed interest. So again, that fixed interest is going to make impact on the part of profit available, which is available for the equity shareholders. So again, more and more the ratio is, more and more borrowed funds you have implied, the more fixed cost you have to pay, and the more less or the less dividend you will be paying to your equity shareholders. So if you're not able to recover the profits to cover your fixed cost, that means you should not take this leverages. If you do not have sufficient revenues to cover, if we do not have sufficient revenues to cover the leverage, then we should not go towards taking these leverages. So if our leverages are higher, that means our revenues are not able to cover our fixed cost. A less leverage is important, or an appropriate leverage is important. Now, if we want to see as operating leverage, we do not have much of our contribution towards operating leverage, but financial leverage we can control. So there are three ratios which we should see, that where our debt financial leverage is increasing or decreasing. So one is debt ratio, one is debt equity ratio, and one is interest coverage ratio. Debt ratio is, if I see my full capital, if my capital is 10 lakh rupees, out of that 10 lakh, 6 lakh is my debt. So that is debt ratio. Debt ratio should not be higher. Out of 10 lakh, if 6 lakhs is debt ratio, that means 60% fund comes from borrowed funds. Debt equity ratio. Now debt equity ratio is, if I have 6 lakhs as debt funds, so 4 lakh would be the equity fund. So 6:4 or 2:3 is your debt equity ratio. That means for every two equity, you have 3 debts, which is again a wrong sign. Then we have interest coverage ratio. It may happen that you have good debt ratio, you have good debt equity ratio, but you are able to cover the interest from the revenue. So it is okay to have more debt equity if you are earning very good. So if your interest coverage ratio is very good, then about 2 ratios, even if they are higher, it is okay for the company. That means that company can bear the risk of the leverage it has implied. Clear? So the third measure is this interest coverage ratio. The opposite of reciprocal of interest coverage ratio is capital income gearing ratio. So income gearing ratio is whatever income is there, out of that you have paid your interest. Now out of this interest, whatever is remained is the income for the equity shareholder. So this income is going to be distributed to equity shareholders, which in increase will give it EPS to the shareholders. So this EPS should be good. So that is your income gearing ratio. So the reciprocal of interest coverage ratio is income gearing ratio. Whatever remaining, you are going to give it to the equity shareholders. Again, we have degree of financial leverage. Degree of financial leverage is percentage change in EPS upon percentage change in EBIT. Now, when we have percentage change in EPS upon percentage change in EBIT, we will see that again degree of financial leverage will only be implied when we have 2 years of data and we have changes or the values available here is EPS and EBIT, because after EBIT, when we deduct interest, the remaining profit is going to be distributed to the earning per share or the shareholders. So that degree of financial leverage will give you the percentage change. This percentage change again should be less. The less percentage change or the less degree of financial leverage you have, the less dissatisfied equity shareholders you have, or the less risk you have. If we combine both the leverages, financial leverages and operating leverage, we get another terminology which is known as combined leverage. If you can see through the formulas, again, if we cancel out EBIT as a numerator and denominator, the remaining answer is EPS upon sales. So whatever sales I'm changing or whatever sales I'm earning, if there's a change, today I'm earning 1 lakh rupees, tomorrow I'll earn 2 lakh rupees. So the change is 100%. Is this change is going to be referred in EPS also as in 100%? Previously, if I was giving 1 rupee as my EPS, am I giving 2 rupees as my EPS? So that means if my 100% change in sales is showing 100% change in EPS, that is a very good sign, but it doesn't happen because the effect of fixed cost plays in between. So 100% change in EPS may show a 20% change in 100% change in sales may show a 20% change in EPS. 100% change in sales may show a 40% change in EPS. So we have to see that, okay, it is okay that our sales has increased, but there should be an increment in the EPS also, which shows that we are able to cover up our fixed cost. We cannot cover it up completely, but yes, to some extent we need to show a change or an increase in EPS also. Again, without degree of formulas, if we see this, so we also get this formula, contribution and EBIT upon EBT. This is the formula for operating leverage multiplied by financial leverage. EBIT gets cancelled, and the answer we get is contribution upon EBT. So this contribution upon EBT is combined leverage. Now see if we can see all these things by one formula. The sales is 100, okay, but the sales gets increased by 20%. So now the sale is 120. If I deduct variable cost, because again the variable cost will get increased by 20% only, because variable cost goes in line with the sales. So if sales is increasing by 20%, variable cost will also increase by 20% and contribution will also increase by 20%. Now, as the fixed cost is fixed, so fixed cost would be 20/20 in both the cases. See the EBIT. Now the change in EBIT comes out to be 40%. So a lesser change in sales is showing a more change in EBIT. Now, if I deduct interest, again, one of the fixed expenses. So if I see a lesser change, what is the change in sales is 20%, change in EBIT is 40%, and change in EBT is 80%. So see, a lesser change in sales is showing a good change in EBT. So that is a very good sign, because we have not increased our fixed cost while we have increased our sales. If in the same example, if we increase the fixed cost also to some extent, this level or this percentage change in EBT and percentage change in EBIT will come down. So more and more leverage will apply, less changes or less benefit will come to the EPS. So leverage is one of the terminology which tells you how much riskier the firm is. Both the leverages, operating leverage and financial leverage, shows the riskier position. Whenever we say that A company is more levered than B company, which means that A company has more component of fixed cost or fixed capital in their business and which is affecting their profits. So leverage is a terminology which should always be on a lower side for a business. It's a terminology for the investor to judge the financial position of the company. Thank you, everyone.